Alrighty, guys, in just under a month, the Marvel Cinematic Universe returns with what I think could be the project that has the most promise. Now, at the beginning of the year, I was fairly sure that Thunderbolts was going to be the surest bet in terms of quality. I just had a feeling that Thunderbolts was going to be the film that I think people could reliably see as entertaining and as fun, and I think our predictions came true in that respect. But Fantastic Four First Steps has a different quality to it. It has an intangible it factor to it, something that WandaVision had when I first saw those trailers, or Thor Ragnarok, something different that it brought to the comic book movie space. And I think Fantastic Four First Steps has that. And I wasn't expecting another trailer, to be quite honest with you, but we're getting a final trailer. And honestly, as I say many times, when we get this close to the release of a movie or show and they release more marketing, I'm very hesitant to watch it. I keep to the rule very, very strictly that I don't watch more than the actual trailers. So anything that's a TV spot or even a tie-in ad, I usually don't watch. I will make the rare exception, though, for something, like a tickets on sale trailer or something like that. And so this is labeled a final trailer. And even then I was like, maybe I just want to skip this one. But I took a look just because, we're doing the podcast and I'm excited for the movie. And so I wanted to check it out. And I'm glad I did. I mean, I saw more in this trailer than, that would be a surprise if I hadn't otherwise. And I'm, obviously going to see the movie regardless. So that's a little bit of a bummer. I mean, in a perfect world, I wouldn't see any trailers. But all that aside, because we don't live in that world, I watched this Fantastic Four First Steps trailer. And this was, I'm sorry, the puns, but this was a fantastic trailer. It really was the best trailer. The first two trailers for this movie, I'm going to be honest, I liked them. And I said as much, right? In fact, when we first saw the teaser, I was like, oh, okay, I was a little worried that, we're going to the 1960s retro vibe, and we hadn't seen the actors gel together. I was a little worried that it just wasn't going to work. It wasn't going to land as well as we hoped it would. And the first trailer, I think, assuaged those fears and made me go, okay, I can see these characters. I can see this world. The second trailer built on that, though I think the second trailer was more of a rehash of the first trailer. And so at this point in time, I love all the individual actors they've gotten, right? Pedro Pascal, Vanessa Kirby, Joseph Quinn, and Evan Moss-Bachrach, I think, just fantastic choice. Again, no pun intended, this time around. But fantastic choices for the cast, but we hadn't seen a whole lot of them gelling together in scenes. And so what this trailer did is it showed us them and their different dynamics. I love just the different pairings that we see later on in a little bit of a montage. We see Ben and Reed hanging out. We see siblings, right? Sue Storm and Johnny Storm, high-fiving each other. And I think that that's awesome, right? I think we want to make sure that every dynamic within this family feels complex, rich, and realized, and also ones that we can root for. And I think that this trailer shows that, right? I love that. I love the Johnny-Ben dynamic. That's something we didn't get in the first two trailers. And I just thought it was so fun and endearing when Johnny's like, say the line, and Ben's like, nope, I don't want to. I love that. I think it's so, so great. And I love that there is such a joy to this version of the group. I know that the last one, the 2015 version, wanted to be much darker. And I don't think that's a bad thing inherently, right? I think you can definitely do Fantastic Four and dark and gritty and grounded, and that's totally fine. But this version obviously is going for the colorful version. It's going for the very comic book accurate, almost the meta feel, where the Fantastic Four, they have their own TV show, and so people know them as the Fantastic Four, almost like a band. It's it's not like an organic name like the Avengers, right? It's a very known quantity in that universe, and I think that that's really, really something that it's a smart move, in my opinion. It's a very smart tactic to go about that way, to introduce these characters for the first time in the MCU, and not even in the MCU yet, obviously in our world in the MCU, but not in Earth 616 because they're in a different universe. And so I think it's a really great idea. The other thing that really stood out to me, obviously, shots of Galactus. I love Julia Gardner's Shia Ball, Silver Surfer, coming down, and she says something like, I herald the beginning, I herald your end. His beginning, I think she says Galactus' his beginning, and she says, I herald Galactus. It's just so cool. And I think some of the shots of Galactus, and I love the shots later on where they're in space and Reed's like, get us out of here, Ben. You see some of the space action. All the shots, it just looks great. And that leads me to the point I was going to make here, which is that, you have a director like Matt Shakman who directed a lot of WandaVision, and he's just so assured in his direction. Every shot feels purposeful. Every shot and camera angle and zoom in and pan out feels very purposeful and intentional, right? Nothing feels like a mistake. There are just even shots of what I'm assuming is the Fantastic Car just zipping in and out of the streets, Ben flying, the spaceship, and Johnny flying in the skies, and just the way the camera is framed, the way that the angles are, the way that they're zooming in on the characters, everything feels so purposeful, which I love, because it shows you just that there is a difference with the director. Look, no offense to any of the other amazing directors that the MCU has, not even talking about the movies I didn't like, just other films. I think that the Russo brothers have this quality where they're able to just make great action, big blockbuster movies, and that is amazing. Winter Soldier aside, I think Winter Soldier had a very, very specific flair to it, even though it was still pretty, dark and gritty, but, somebody like a John Watts as well. John Watts obviously is able to dig into the John Hughes teen comedy aspect very well, but his directing style is just, it blends in well with the story, which, for those specific films, the Spider-Man trilogy and the Avengers films, I think that there is a quality in which they, the directing should not overpower them. I think we saw that with something like a Taika Waititi for Thor: Love and Thunder, and even to a lesser extent Sam Raimi for Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. But I will say that for a film like Fantastic Four First Steps, where you're dealing with that 1960s sort of vibe, it's really important, I think, to have a setting and a tone and a feel that just feels unique and feels settled, but also lively and vibrant. And I think that that's awesome. So I watched this trailer, the shots of Galactus, the shots of Silver Surfer, the shots of all the Fantastic Four, using their powers as well, but also them together as a family. I just think it's awesome. I don't know if maybe the one thing I'll say, I don't know how I feel about the that shot that stitches together all of them looking at their watches at the very beginning, the kind of cross-cutting editing. I don't know if I love that personally, but again, it's just a very minor thing. And an otherwise, I think, amazing trailer. I really think this is the best trailer that they've put out, and I don't necessarily think it's close, to be quite honest with you. So, guys, let me know in the comments down below. Are you more excited about Fantastic Four First Steps after watching this trailer? And what did you think about the trailer itself? And let me know where you're at with Fantastic Four First Steps. Let me know in the comments down below.